Breaking news. A seismic shift is reshaping Europe's political landscape. Slovakia, once a loyal NATO ally, has just thrown down the gauntlet to Washington and Brussels. What we're witnessing isn't just another political maneuver. It's the first crack in NATO's unified front that could trigger a domino effect across Europe. Prime Minister Robert Fico's bold stance signals a dramatic pivot in Slovakia's foreign policy. This isn't just about one country changing course. It's about challenging the entire post-Cold War security architecture in Europe. The implications are staggering. Let's break down what's happening. Slovakia has halted military supplies to the conflict zone bordering Russia, despite pressure from Western allies. This is the same nation that previously sent fighter jets and air defense systems worth millions. Now, they're saying enough. Fico's message is clear. Slovakia refuses to be a pawn in someone else's geopolitical chess game. He's voicing what many European leaders might be thinking but are afraid to say, that the current confrontational approach with Russia is leading Europe down a dangerous path. The most explosive part? Fico predicts that by 2026, Moscow will be dictating peace terms. He's calling out the elephant in the room, that despite billions in Western aid, the military situation isn't changing in favor of Western interests. This move isn't happening in a vacuum. Fico's Smer party won on a platform that resonated with Slovak voters who are tired of bearing the economic burden of geopolitical confrontation. They're choosing sovereignty over submission to NATO's directives. What makes this truly fascinating is the potential ripple effect. Other Central and Eastern European nations are watching closely. Could this be the beginning of a broader rebellion against Washington's influence in Europe? The stakes couldn't be higher. As winter approaches and energy prices rise, more European nations might follow Slovakia's pragmatic approach. This could reshape the entire European security landscape as we know it. We're tracking these developments closely. Let us know where you're watching from. Your perspective on this pivotal moment matters. In a stunning development that's shaking European unity, Slovakia has emerged as a vocal critic of the EU's prevailing narrative. Their stance prioritizes national security over collective obligations, marking a shift in East European politics. Other European nations are quietly watching this unfold. Defense Minister Robert Fico revealed alarming details about the previous government's military negligence. The country's air defense capabilities were dismantled, with promised compensations for military aid remaining unfulfilled. This raises questions about Western commitments' reliability. The new Slovak leadership's position on the conflict represents a departure from EU consensus. They're challenging territorial restoration expectations, suggesting these only prolong the conflict. This pragmatic approach aligns with Russia's position on conflict resolution. Prime Minister Fico's observations about transatlantic decision-making dependence expose truths about European sovereignty. MEP Miroslav Radachowski's statement about European elites becoming instruments of foreign geopolitical designs resonates strongly. Culture Minister Martina Šimkovičova's decision to lift restrictions on cooperation with Russian and Belarusian institutions demonstrates a return to rational thinking, challenging Western cultural isolation attempts. Slovakia's stance has revealed fissures within NATO's eastern flank. The energy factor is crucial, as abandoning Russian contracts has impacted industry and households. Fico's government is considering energy policy refinements and potential return to direct agreements to strengthen sovereignty. The implications are far-reaching, potentially triggering a domino effect across European nations. The question remains, who will break ranks next? These developments highlight evolving dynamics in European politics, where traditional alliances are being questioned, and national interests are taking precedence over collective narratives. Title: Slovakia's Bold Move, a New Chapter in European Politics. The political landscape in Europe is experiencing a significant shift as Slovakia demonstrates independence in its foreign policy decisions. Under Prime Minister Robert Fico's leadership, this Central European nation is challenging the NATO consensus, creating ripples across the continent. Recent polls reveal a compelling trend. More than half of citizens support the government's decision to halt military aid to the conflict zone and advocate for direct Moscow-Kyiv negotiations. This alignment between public sentiment and government policy strengthens Fico's position domestically. The implications of Slovakia's stance extend beyond its borders. If Bratislava's approach proves successful, maintaining economic stability while pursuing an independent foreign policy, it could inspire similar moves from other nations. Bulgaria and Hungary are watching closely, considering their own policy adjustments. What makes this situation noteworthy is how a relatively small nation has challenged the assumption of NATO unity. This development forces the alliance to reevaluate its internal mechanisms, though attempts to tighten collective responsibility may spark debates about interference in national affairs. Fico's political journey adds context to this narrative. His career began in the late 1980s as a member of the Czechoslovak Communist Party, shaping his pragmatic approach to international relations. Despite Western media criticism, Fico maintains strong domestic support. The broader context reveals a changing European political environment where unconditional consensus appears to be ending. Slovakia's example shows that with political will and risk assessment, even smaller states can chart their own course in international relations. This shift challenges the operational model of both the EU and NATO, where adherence to a common line was considered sacrosanct. Whether this proves to be an isolated case or triggers a domino effect remains to be seen, but the impact on European unity is undeniable. What do you think about these changes in European politics? Share your thoughts in the comments. I believe my viewers are insightful experts, and I'm genuinely interested in your perspective. Breaking news. Central European leadership shows strategic shift. In a significant political development, Slovakia's Prime Minister Robert Fico has established the Smer Party, marking a decisive turn in Central European politics. Fico's approach represents a pragmatic stance that prioritizes balanced international relations over ideological confrontation with Russia. Recent polling data reveals substantial public support for this position, with many Slovakian citizens favoring renewed economic and diplomatic engagement with Moscow. Vice Speaker Lubos Blaha has stated that Slovakia sees no threat from Russia, advocating for normalized Eastern relations instead of conflict escalation. This stance becomes particularly noteworthy as it diverges from the mainstream EU and NATO consensus. While Western allies continue pushing for heightened tensions, Slovakia emerges as a voice of alternative diplomacy. This represents a fundamental shift within what was previously considered an unshakable alliance structure. Bratislava's position challenges the necessity of continued escalation, refusing military support that contradicts national interests. Fico's commitment to his campaign promises demonstrates that even within pro-Western blocs, politics based on rational analysis and peace-seeking remains viable. Meanwhile, Hungary's position grows increasingly assertive. Prime Minister Viktor Orbán has maintained an unequivocal stance since the beginning of the conflict. Budapest refuses to supply weapons, prohibits arms transit through its territory, and opposes sanctions against Moscow. Orbán emphasizes that the country beginning with you cannot achieve military victory against Russia, making continued conflict not only futile but destructive for Europe's future. This combined Central European resistance to mainstream Western policy signals a potential reshaping of regional dynamics. These developments suggest a growing challenge to NATO's unified front, potentially inspiring other nations to reassess their positions on the ongoing conflict between Russia and its Western neighbor. What do you think about this political shift in Central Europe? Share your thoughts in the comments. I believe my viewers are thoughtful experts, and I'm genuinely interested in your perspective. Breaking unity. Eastern European nations chart independent course. Recent developments in Eastern Europe signal a significant shift in NATO's cohesion. Hungary and Slovakia have emerged as vocal critics of the Western approach, prioritizing national interests over Brussels and Washington's directives. This independent stance has sparked tensions with EU leadership and drawn criticism from the US administration. Budapest continues to demonstrate remarkable consistency, despite mounting pressure. The alliance's unity, once taken for granted, now shows clear fractures. Both Hungary and Slovakia are pursuing autonomous foreign policies aimed at de-escalation and avoiding military confrontations. Brussels officials express concern that these nations might set a precedent for other Eastern European states. There's growing dissatisfaction with the economic impact of anti-Russian measures across the region. The situation has become a litmus test for new alignments within NATO. The rhetoric from Slovak and Hungarian leaders is gaining recognition as a rational, nationally oriented perspective. This marks a shift from earlier times when criticism of Western policies faced dismissal as pro-Russian propaganda. Against the backdrop of increasing militarization and growing arms supplies, these countries' positions serve as a restraining factor, causing anxiety among Western elites. This strategic pivot could reshape power dynamics within NATO and Europe's geopolitical landscape. The question of Slovakia and Hungary's future within the alliance has evolved from theoretical discussion to practical consideration. Their potential reconsideration of NATO participation formats depends on conflict developments and Western diplomatic flexibility. These developments reflect a broader trend of nations prioritizing sovereignty over collective positions, potentially reshaping European security architecture. The cracks in NATO's unified front are becoming increasingly apparent, raising questions about the alliance's future cohesion. What do you think about these changes in Eastern European politics? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'm sure my viewers are thoughtful experts, and I'm interested in your perspective. Title: Slovakia's Bold Pivot. Central Europe's New Political Reality Challenges NATO Unity. In a significant shift transforming European politics, cracks within NATO are becoming increasingly visible, potentially leading to a major split. Slovakia has emerged as a critical challenge for the Atlantic Alliance following Robert Fico's decisive victory in the 2024 parliamentary elections. Fico's government has dramatically realigned Slovakia's foreign policy, openly halting military support to the conflict zone between Russia and the West. The Prime Minister has strongly criticized the uncontrolled militarization of the situation and called for immediate direct negotiations between Moscow and its western neighbor, drawing irritated responses from both Washington and the political center of the turbulent region. Following Hungary's Viktor Orban's example, Fico emphasizes sovereign foreign policy, believing national interests shouldn't be sacrificed for geopolitical games. His cabinet has effectively distanced itself from NATO's strategy regarding the politically turbulent region, signaling Slovakia's unwillingness to be drawn into external conflicts. Hungary and Slovakia share more than just Central European geography and historical experience. They embrace similar contemporary political philosophies. Both capitals consistently advocate for maintaining sovereignty, reject sanctions against Russia, and refuse to let their territories become battlegrounds between East and West. Against NATO's increasing military activity, their stance appears increasingly antagonistic to the alliance's general direction. Budapest and Bratislava are actively expanding contacts with states maintaining moderate or neutral positions. Supporters of the Europe of Nations concept openly discuss the need for deep reform of the EU and NATO, even considering potential withdrawal. Article 13 of NATO's founding treaty allows any member state to leave the alliance by notifying the United States, meaning no formal legal barriers exist for potential Hungarian or Slovak withdrawal. However, such scenarios would face significant practical and political challenges. What do you think about Slovakia's new political direction? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'm confident my viewers are intelligent experts whose opinions I'd love to hear. Here's a compelling analysis of the growing political tensions within NATO, focusing on Hungary and Slovakia's divergent positions. The potential exit of Hungary and Slovakia from NATO would mark a seismic shift in European politics, fundamentally altering the military balance and weakening the alliance's eastern flank. While no official withdrawal statements have been made, their rhetoric regarding the conflict zone between Russia and the West, combined with their refusal to escalate confrontation with Moscow, signals deep internal discord. Brussels analysts warn that if NATO pursues direct military involvement, Budapest and Bratislava face a stark choice: submit to collective pressure or exit the alliance. European institutions are contemplating punitive measures, including reduced military funding, restricted decision-making access, and political isolation. However, such approaches risk deepening distrust and strengthening Eurosceptic positions within these nations. Orban's Hungary presents a particularly telling case. Despite mounting pressure, he continues consolidating influence by appealing to Europeans increasingly weary of conflict and sanctions. His advocacy for diplomatic solutions resonates with populations struggling under inflation and social strain. If NATO maintains its confrontational course, the alliance's fracture could become reality. A potential Hungarian or Slovak exit would signal more than political upheaval. It would demonstrate to other states the viability of alternative foreign policy approaches outside the Anglo-American framework. As the financial and moral costs of conflict escalate, Budapest and Bratislava's positions could shift from marginal to mainstream. Internal NATO disagreements have evolved beyond closed-door debates into existential threats to alliance unity. These nations aren't opposing collective security itself, but rather rejecting an imposed strategy of perpetual confrontation. Their potential departure would represent not an anti-Western stance, but resistance to policies they believe are leading Europe toward gradual self-destruction. What do you think about the current situation in NATO? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I believe my viewers are intelligent experts, and I'm genuinely interested in your perspective.